We are continuing our series of Elias Pettersson trade packages. As more articles come out, as more conversations get started, it opens the door for us to start hypothesizing on what deals could look like. Now, we did make a video or two or 5 already about the idea of Elias Pettersson heading over to Motown to the Detroit Red Wings. That was an idea proposed and talked about by Halford and Bruff, Frank Saravalli, folks going out there and continuously linking Elias Pettersson to various teams, and Detroit always seems to be one of them. It's Detroit, it's Carolina, it's one of the two, it's whatever. But I wanted to head over to an article posted by Trevor Beggs 2 days ago on dailyhive.com. talking about 7 teams that have been linked to Vancouver Canucks Elias Pettersson and what they could offer. Now, of course, this is an article of 7 teams. We actually technically could make 7 separate videos about this entire thing, but I don't want to do that. I just want to go out there and talk about my Red Wings because, of course, them being in this conversation is intriguing for me. There is a conversation about Carolina, LA, San Jose, Chicago. It's not going to be Connor Bedard, but that would be pretty nice. Ottawa and the Utah Mammoth, they're all over here too, but when it comes to the Detroit Red Wings, this is what Beggs goes out and writes. Like Carolina, the Red Wings are one of the few playoff teams with the cap space to trade for Elias Pettersson. Frank Saravalli recently mentioned the Wings as a team interested in PD's services. We also learned from Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman that the Red Wings backed out of a Quinn Hughes trade because they could not sign him to an extension. Hey, at least there's cost certainty with Pettersson. If the Canucks could get a first-round pick, a prospect, and a roster player back for Petey, as some have suggested, could a trade be as simple as Detroit's first-round pick, one of Danielson or Marco Kasper, and perhaps a roster player, like Surrey BC's Michael Rasmussen? And here's the thing, I think on the surface, this might not necessarily be a trade that either fanbase is super excited about. You know, we have this golden rule when it comes to talking about trade rumors or trade proposals. If both teams' fan bases have the same reaction to the trade, either they both don't like it or they both like it, then it's a good trade. If both fan bases think they got fleeced, then it's a pretty equal move. But if both fan bases also feel kinda meh, apathetic about it, then I'd say it's also pretty equal. Elias Pettersson is actually pretty alright. I'd say that he's a good enough player to have in your top 6 on an NHL lineup, but he's making $11.6 million a year. That's not as bad of a deal now as it was maybe like a year ago when he was still struggling and the cap didn't absolutely explode with people signing $12 million winger deals. But Elias Pettersson this year, on pace for 51 points on the worst team in the NHL, is passable. Not $11.6 million caliber, but it does beg the question, if he was playing on a better team, could he unlock that 100-plus point side to him once more? I think there's a pretty standard belief amongst both the Vancouver Canucks and the collective body of other NHL franchises that Pettersson could do that. So if he's playing second line with Kane and DeBrincat, if he's getting sheltered minutes, if he doesn't have to be a number 1 center, then I do think there's a world where Elias Pettersson takes that sort of sheltered role and thrives, absolutely explodes, gets some more points, and maybe even gets that confidence back that allowed him to get 100 points in the season all those years ago. I would understand if some Red Wings fans would say, hey, wait a minute, Kasper and a first and a Rasmussen. I get that there's generally a pretty negative sentiment about Michael Rasmussen when it comes to talking about Red Wings guys, but I do think that some sort of a roster player would need to come back to Vancouver. I just don't think Rasmussen is a guy that moves the needle enough for Vancouver to fully say yes to it. I get it. You can say, oh, he's 26 years old. He's a center. He's big. He can do all these things. He's on pace for 23 points. But then again, it's like if the Vancouver Canucks trade away Elias Pettersson, you're going to have to toss Rasmussen into your number 1 center position. Marco Rossi is still hurt. So is Philip Hedl. What happens when all those guys come back? And what happens when you still have players that need to play up the lineup to fill out minutes. One of Teddy Bluger or Rasmussen or I dare say Atu Ratu or Assassin would need to be labeled as the number 1C, and that's questionable to me. Now, I think it's unavoidable in an Elias Pettersson trade. I think if you're trading this guy away, you need to get yourself some sort of a center coming back, but obviously all the value is not going to be just tied into that center. You'll probably have a prospect. You'll probably have a draft pick. If it is Marco Kasper coming to Vancouver, I'd honestly be okay with him or Danielson at this point. Kasper has started to really get things going again recently. 2 points against San Jose, an assist against Ottawa. The Red Wings have been trusting him more and more, and he's starting to get that confidence back. Kasper last season was able to score 37 points in 77 games. This year he is on pace for 14, so a pretty big sophomore slump for the Austrian top 10 pick out of Detroit. Nate Danielson is still doing his thing in the AHL as well. I'd say that Danielson has had a pretty strong season there. 10 points, 10 games, 7 points in 28 Red Wings games as well. There is a lot to like out of Danielson too. I'd honestly say that Danielson has a higher offensive ceiling, so from that perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if Vancouver would prefer a guy like Danielson. And then you talk about the draft pick. Right now, Tankathon has Detroit in the 27th overall spot, which is just 1 point behind the Minnesota Wild. Vancouver has Minnesota's first as they acquired it in the Quinn Hughes trade, but the Canucks, the fact that they have 2 first-round picks right now is honestly a blessing. They haven't picked twice in the first round in, I want to say, 12 years? The last time was 2014. They took Virtanen and McCann. 2015, they had 1 pick, it was Besser. 2016, 1 pick, it was Juolevi. 2017, 1 pick, it was Pettersson. 2018, 1 pick, it was Hughes. 2019, 1 pick, it was Podkolzin. In 2020, they did not have a pick. 2021, they did not have a pick. 22, it was the Karamaki. 23, it was Villander. 24, it was... oh boy. I don't even remember. Yeah, it's been a while since the Vancouver Canucks have had multiple draft picks in the first round. Yeah, no, they didn't have one in 2024. Why not, man? Come on. They really, really sold it, didn't they? But Vancouver was in a spot where they passed up on first-round talent for multiple years. It's why they're kind of stuck in this position that they've got. But they haven't had 2 first-round picks since 2014, Virtanen and McCann. If they're able to go out there and get 3, then I think that would be so good for the Vancouver Canucks, even if it's 2 picks in the late 20s, 26 and 27. That's still fine. You have the number 1 overall pick right now, after all. And by the way, we do have to make another video about that. I want to talk about that later in today's show, if you don't mind me asking. But when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, 1st overall, 26th overall, maybe 27th overall, getting as many draft picks in the first round as they can is a good thing. So if the trade does look like a Rasmussen, a Kasper, a first-round pick, I honestly don't complain if I'm a fan of either of these teams. Red Wings fans won't be missing out on Rasmussen too much anyway. The rebuild, you can say, is almost done. There are enough prospects chilling and growing and developing and getting better that you can say, what's a first in 2026 when you've got a team that's already one of the top 5 teams in the NHL today? I do think that's a reasonable conclusion. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this proposed Elias Pettersson trade idea from dailyhive.com? I'll leave a link in the description to the article if you want to read it yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.